Well, good again, everyone. So here goes the answers to some of your questions, or all of your questions. I think we've got to forget how many here, but there's enough to keep us going for a bit. I'll try not to make them too long, but thanks for those that gave us the questions. Sorry, we haven't set up an opportunity for our OGR YouTube people to ask the questions. I'll do that hopefully next week, although I'm traveling on Sunday, so I'll work that out anyway. But we'll get the next one up will be YouTube, as I've got to just make a little film clip to put it on to YouTube, which they then share to Facebook. So, but at the moment they're Facebook questions, so that's cool. Okay, so straight into it. So Caroline Croft, you'll see that I've got some OGR questions here. It looks like it, but what I've done is when people have asked us questions in the normal comments to other posts that require more than just a simple yes or no or one short grab in the comments, I'm referring to people now to the question and answer session so that we can explain the answer in a bit more detail. Anyway, Caroline says, was she, Marie, not penalised for breaking rules regarding the use of computers? No. So just to recap on what happened some time ago, a week ago, Marie actually sent a text, used the computer, which is only allowed on board for video editing. She used that computer to type out a message, okay, and then attach that as like a Word file to the video file that came back. Now, it was actually being sent to OGR. It wasn't sent direct from the computer or from the boat to their team, so that they could then use it or whatever it is. That would have been a breach of the rules, and we would have assessed that and asked questions why it happened and so on. But in this instance, we knew it was coming to us. It was really just more of a mistake through possibly confusion on her part. And to explain that, because this comes up again with another question, how did we ever get to the point where we are now allowing people to write hand messages and photograph that and send it? Because you can't use a computer for anything. That's not in the rules. You can't do it. But because it came to us, we were able to short circuit it. Didn't go anywhere else, and we just advised Marie, look, just to remind you, it's not allowed to use the computer for anything but editing. And then we've said, because there was this issue that came up, that you can take a photo, because there are 3 pictures allowed. And if you're sailing past Cape Horn, we fully expect people to put up a sign with the date and the time, hey, Cape Horn behind. So that's sort of like a picture of a handwritten message. And we allowed that. But right at the very end of the final crew briefing, this is all the entrants in a room when we're briefing them on sailing instructions and safety protocols and all that sort of stuff, someone threw the question to the floor, or to us running the briefing. Oh, what if we take a picture of a message, because, we don't allow texting. The only texting we allow is the tweets, right? Every 6 hours, you can do a short grab tweet. And it was a left field question right at the last minute. And I thought, oh, jeepers, I had to make a quick decision. And I made it very clear. They said, okay, well, that's a photograph. You can do that, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't really happy with it, because every time we give a little bit of room on something and change the ethos or the concept or the spirit of the OGR, what it is, people will then start working their way in and try and take it to the nth degree. So anyway, at the time, I did say, yes, if you photograph your logbook, imagine you're writing your chart down and doing all your navigation, you take a picture of your logbook. That's a picture. People might want to see the logbook and go. And so we let it run at that. But it's now got to the point where it's getting too confusing, and you're about to see that on Monday we will stop all of that because it's not in the general principle, the concept of what we originally were trying to achieve with photographs and videos. Okay. Now, video clips are very clear. 3-minute video, that's it, bang. There's no messages in that. It's just all about the vision to give our followers a chance to get a short feel for what's going on board. Only a few of the boats have the capacity to send video, and that's Triana, Evrika, Translated, and Marie. But in Marie's case, even that gets tricky, because she's on a special dispensation to use her Starlink only to Cape Town, and I'll address that because there's another question coming up later. And for photographs, it is a requirement that people have the ability to send photographs for safety reasons. That was the first issue. And then we allow it now for up to 3 photos a week. They're meant to be photos, okay? And we now see comments from some people put comments, oh, the English rules are stupid, and, oh, it's not clear enough, this, that, and the other. So we're just going to cut it straight back to where it's meant to be. There will be an opportunity for all entrants to send 3 photographs, okay? And a photo is a photo. It's not meant to be a method of communication with handwritten text and so on. So you'll see that disappear now. And videos are videos. That's it, because that's in the spirit of the OGR, what it was actually meant to be. So that's a sudden change. But yes, Marie was not penalised because it was a simple mistake. It wasn't through possible confusion and through trying to tweak the rules. So I made it very clear, handwritten message in the briefing, but she just thought it might have been, messages. And so she used a computer and so on. So we're not going to penalise them for that. It was a bit of a simple thing. But stand by for the change. We're going to knock it on the head. We're not going to allow, because now people are sending more than one page. Okay. Some are sending. So what we'll end up seeing now, if someone wants to get a message across, instead of getting photographs, you'll get photographs of 3 pages of handwritten text, which is not what we want to see. There is opportunities to communicate through the tweets. Some of the boats, and surprisingly, I'm stunned that some of them who are complaining about lack of communications aren't even taking the opportunity to send you all tweets. I think the tweets are fantastic. You get an overview of the whole fleet on these little grabs, and you can 4 tweets a day is quite a lot. You'll feel and get involved and become emotional with everything that's happening. So that's that one. Anyway, and Sunlum is saying, glad it was a false alarm on Neptune, so are we. So in the OGR, are there waypoints that are part of the course that must be rounded to avoid a penalty? Yes, absolutely. The waypoints are clearly defined. There's a no-go zone at the bottom of the South Atlantic, okay? And so you can't dip into that square box. If you do, I think it's a 6-hour penalty. I think, I have to check the notice, right? 4 hours maybe once you cross the zone, and then 4 hours for every hour you're in the zone. So you stay right away from that, mainly because it's an ice area. You can in summer and also at this time of the year have ice coming up from the Antarctic, so it's quite dangerous. The other waypoints are to keep the boats from going too far south, because if something happened to one of the boats and we needed to rely and request assistance from the rescue coordination centres in South Africa or Australia or New Zealand, it's very clear they do not want to see the boats too far south, because there's not a lot of shipping down there. In fact, there's none. They're usually straight line between Cape Town and Australia. And so the further south we get, the more challenging it is, even though we would first and foremost rely on other entrants to assist, but you never know what's going to happen. So in the GGR, you would have noticed we had no-go zones, like a block. Okay, now we've relayed that for the Southern Ocean mostly as waypoints, so they can go up and around the waypoint and so on, but it directs the fleet, and there's big penalties if they miss that waypoint. Plus, not only do they get the penalty, we can then apply another waypoint specific to them. And the reason for that is if there's a waypoint right there and the weather's more beneficial for them to stay south, or they can make some advantage from it, they may decide, let's just take the penalty and go for it underneath. So to stop that, we've now got that provision that allows us to say, yeah, that's fine, but you better get north, because you've now got another waypoint to get going on. So that's it. A question in reference to Outlaw. I've moved the weather forward for a week and the winds are holding strong near the coast of Africa. Is it okay for Outlaw to continue the course southeastwards? Yeah, there is no, Trinidad is not a mark of the course. There is no actual waypoints in the South Atlantic. They can go wherever they want. It's just all got to do with not going too far south. So, and that route map that we have, like you'll see the red line, which is the average route. That's just average for the whole course to calculate those things like distance to the finish or the vector made good and so on. So that's just an average sort of course that we think the fleet normally might take. Okay, Margaret Noggy, what are the rules regarding the use of engines? The engines aren't sealed. The propeller shaft, isn't sealed. It's free turning because it might be needed in a man overboard situation or some other situation. So if at any time an entrant uses their engine, they need to log that, obviously, in their ship's log, engine on at such and such a time, engine off at such and such a time, and state the reason why. And then that's logbook is an official document. They then should notify race control and say they've run their engine for 2 hours because they had to do X, and they would no doubt get a penalty, and we would assess that once we know the facts. The other thing that happens with engines is that we have a strange little rule specific to OGR that says on Mondays you can actually run your motor for 15 minutes, and during that 15 minutes you're required to put it in gear and turn the propeller. The reason for that, I explained this the other week, is that the blades are folding or feathering, and sometimes if they're not opened up occasionally, they get stuck and they won't open. And if you have a man overboard and you need your engine, it's good to know that the blades and the prop are going to open up. So any time on a Monday, all entrants can run their motors for 15 minutes. They can use that strategically if they're becalmed in the doldrums or whatever, but that's part of the rules. John, why is Marie sending her files via Starlink instead of her sat phone like everyone else? Well, just explain. Everyone has Iridium satellite phones on board. There are actually SIM cards in that phone that OGR provide. And we have forensic access to the accounts, and we can tell every time the phone's being used and who has called or who they have called, or whether it's a phone call or an SMS or whatever, because they're basically not allowed to call anyone except race control or an emergency rescue coordination centres and so on. And no one can ring them. If they receive a call from someone, they're in deep poo. They would get the penalty because no one's supposed to know that number and so on. So that's it. With Starlink, the Starlink is only supposed to be used and is used for photographs and video files. So, we're not expecting to get messages from Starlink system. Okay. Another one, Evrika has a Certus system, which is an Iridium, which is an Inmarsat based system. Well, anyway, it's just that's a different one again. But anyway, it's another slightly different concept. But again, we have controls on that and can work out when it's being used and so on. Now, in the case of Starlink, I'll give you Translated's situation. They have an OGR approved Starlink system on board, and we have complete control on that. It's a marine terminal, okay? So it's a fully authorized marine terminal, but we use an OGR secure router that's plugged into the system. That plug-in is sealed, so it can't be broken. The router itself is in a box, which is completely enclosed and sealed. And we have our own OGR technical representative, Stefan, who manages everything. And he controls that router remotely. And all that router allows a translator to do is to, in fact, we open it 1 day a week. So it's open at a set time. And during that time, Translated can only send information one way. Okay. They can't receive anything back. And that's how we control the Starlink system. And it's very simple, nothing complicated about it. And we have complete control. In the case of Marie on Penduic, she decided not to fit that system, and there were some issues there right at the very end. We'd been working with her for months. She decided not to fit it, and so she's got an open Starlink, and it's a terrestrial unit. It's not a marine unit, but it was very important for her. So at the end, we've given her a specific dispensation to use that system, but only until Cape Town. And so at Cape Town, she'll have to change that for an OGR approved system. And there's another boat, Neptune, don't have Starlink at the moment. They're putting on an OGR approved system as well. So there's a few different things there. So she doesn't actually send her messages via Starlink. She uses her normal tweets from the Iridium phone, and that's it. So it's pretty straightforward. So what exactly was a dispensation? I just explained that. But yeah, she has to change because we can't control that. We completely trust Marie on how she's using that. She's got a log when she uses it. She only turns it on once a week on her designated day to download the video files and photo files. So there's a lot of honor involved with the OGR. Even things like with the GPSs. We just use a sun cover now, and the two people on board can lift that sun cover and check it's working in case they need it for an man overboard situation. So we're not worried about that. When people do so much effort to get into the OGR, we're quite certain they don't want to cheat against themselves. It's counterproductive. So that's pretty fine. So I hope that makes sense. It's not a stupid question, John. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So John Russell, hi Don. I guess there was no ice limit in the Southern Ocean in 1973. That's exactly right. What was the furthest south that any yacht went into that race? Thanks. They went a long way south. You would have seen all the photos in the early editions. They went the shortest route possible. I explained the difference between a Great Circle route and what we see on the chart. You know, when you've got a Mercator projection, it's only a straight line between 2 points on the Mercator projection. But if you then fold that Mercator projection around a spherical globe, that's not the shortest distance between the 2 points. So if I had a blow up globe here and ran a bit of cotton from one point to the other, the shortest distance, if you flatten that out, you'll see the route from Cape Town to, say, New Zealand goes down to the South Pole, just about, goes right into Antarctica. You can't do it, of course. But so anyway, I'm not sure of the exact latitudes that they went, but they were way under 60 on some of them. And they were, a lot of them were icing up and freezing up. And I've been down there often and know exactly what that entails. And it's quite dramatic. And the idea of racing through areas of icebergs and growlers, the bits breaking off the icebergs, it's completely dangerous, completely, because we've, as I say, I've sailed down there quite a lot, and you can only concentrate for so long. And certainly in pack ice, when you've got lots of ice everywhere, the size of fridges and cars and stuff, sure, you just sail around them. It's like a slalom course. It's quite good fun until you break concentration just once. Next minute, bang. And on a boat I had for many years, Spirit of Sydney, we split the bow 3 times hitting ice, but we had a collision compartment. Long story. So anyway, 60 south. The other thing, funny enough, if you go far enough south, the predominant weather then comes from the east. So you got headwinds. So you got to be careful. You got the roaring 40s, furious 50s, and screaming 60s. But down there, when you get down that far, you got to be careful you don't hook up into the headwinds. But the beauty of it is, when you get down there, you don't have the furious 50s and roaring 40s. The wind actually becomes a lot more mild. It can be, on the many transits I've done, sometimes just before when you get the high 50s, all of a sudden it's like you're in the Caribbean. Sun comes out and it's really mild. You don't get the same sort of strength of wind, and the sea state drops down, and because that's where the low pressure systems are born. So they're very small and intense, and they move really fast. Rest of it's, they head up in the northeasterly direction into the Southern Ocean. But down there you can get beautiful weather. It's quite amazing. Good place to go if you get the chance. Anyway, so they would have been touching on 60, certainly, high 50s, a lot of them. Tina, if a boat arrives, let's say 5 days before the next start, but that's not enough for food deliveries for the next leg, maybe some fixing, and so needing to be done, how long is the maximum stay in port without getting a penalty? Well, you don't get a penalty, but what happens is the start gun goes and the clock started whether you're on the line or not. So if you decide that you're not able to cross the line straight away, the gun's going and you only get a set time. And I forget the restart times. I think the restart times certainly for the start is 7 days. And so it's probably going to be similar. You'd have up to 7 days to go. The issue in the notice of race is that you're supposed to arrive no less than 4 hours before the restart. And if you arrive after that period, we have the right to knock you out of the race. But I explained this the other week. I think that we would look at the facts as to why they didn't make the 4 hours before the restart before we determine whether we'd let them restart at a later day. You certainly have to stop for at least 3 days. I think it is. You can't just come in for 1 day, chuck everything on and go. You have to stop for at least 3 days to check everything properly. So there's a few variables there, but we try and keep everyone in the race, sort of thing. Godspeed may be interesting on that, but they're actually sailing well now. And if they get their break in the doldrums, I think they'll turn up in time. So the big worry is Explorer. Will she make the start? Joke, but maybe not. I don't know. So I hope that makes sense. Hope most and if there were some penalties, there's no penalties, just this time thing. Get going. The clock's running. Looking forward to see how it goes after tonight. Yep, okay. Denise Black. G'day, Denise. What will happen if Godspeed don't make Cape Town in time for the second leg? We'll address that at the time, but I'm hoping they will, and we'll do everything we can to keep them in the event, and I'm sure they will be. So no need to worry at the moment. Nope. Okay. Kylie Smith. Godspeed has been disqualified from the first leg. Well, she's not been disqualified, but she's hit with a severe penalty. Would you be able to elaborate a little on why that decision was made and what it means for the rest of their journey? Okay, we thought long and hard about this, and you may have heard me talk about the potential penalty in the days leading up to the penalty, and when we came down to make the final decision on the penalty, it changed again. I was thinking that the feeling would have been that they've spent at least 3 days in port, so that's probably enough of a penalty. But in reality, it's very clear in the notice of race, and we have to be very careful on every decision we make. And that what's so clear is that the event, you're not allowed to have any outside assistance whatsoever. So a boat could stop and anchor behind an island, or it could come into a bay somewhere and anchor and fix the boat themselves. They can even go ashore as long as they don't go higher than the high water line, right? So they could land on the beach, they could swim ashore, land on the beach, go for a walk, pick up some wood or rocks if they needed it or something. They can't go to the shop because that's outside assistance, but they can't go above the high water mark. Because this is a race, and the reason you can win, one of the prime reasons you can win, is that you don't make any mistakes, and your boat is prepared so well that the other boats that have either not prepared their boat as well or have pushed their boats too hard and break something, they're at a disadvantage. It's not the ones that are taking conservative route and so on. So there is absolutely no outside assistance, and we realised that if we didn't hold true to that aspect, you could have a situation where you could have the winning boat has another second running boat 3 days behind, and the winning boat has a problem, but it's only about 60 miles off a port. So they then pull into the port and quickly fix up their problem and get back out there. And they could say, oh, but last time you did it with Godspeed, that you didn't do da-da-da-da. But it's clear in the notice of race that's not fair, because if they couldn't get to port to fix that problem, they would probably be out of the race. So that would mean the boat that's running second misses out because they went a little bit slower because they prepared their boat better. So we just had to hold to the notice of race. And effectively what it means is they're not disqualified. They're still in the event. They're making for Cape Town, but we will not allow any rankings or any numbers from the first leg for Godspeed. So when they get to Cape Town, they start again. And the IRC and your actual finishing times, for instance, are based on the whole course. So they won't be eligible for line honours. They won't be eligible for IRC prizes for overall for the 4 legs, but they'll certainly be able to race on each of the individual legs now. So if they perform really well on leg 2 and they become an IRC, they could win IRC on leg 2 for the whole fleet if they sailed well. And same for leg 3 and same for leg 4. But they can't do it for the whole race because they didn't basically, they're not getting any rankings for the first leg. So that was the decision. It's very clear and simple and clean, and it lets everyone else in the fleet know that if they get outside assistance, basically you're out of the game, and that's the fairest thing for everyone else. Okay, Saria. Hi, Don. I'm a non-sailor who originally got hooked on the adventure of the GGR. My question is, what is the story behind Ian, that's just Ian Herbert Jones from the GGR, ending up on Spirit of Helsinki? Was it really a last-minute decision? I appreciate your explanations for non-sailor followers. I'm learning so much. Feedback, I think 3 photos and a short video clip of the boat are a good feature, even though they are compromised to the original concept. Yes, I agree. But anyway, so to answer your question, we have 4 GGR skippers, I think, in the OGR. Philippe Peche, who's one of a very top sailor, he's done a lot of serious stuff. He's on Penduic 6 with Marie, and you would have seen him at the start right alongside Marie giving advice. He's I'm assuming he's there for navigator or tactician, but a very clever sailor, and I'm sure he's having a positive effect on Penduic 6. We've got Simon Kerwin, who in the 22 GGR was the fastest sailor around the course. In other words, he was way in front. He was 1,000 miles in front, holding the lead going towards Cape Horn, and then he got hooked up in a big storm. He had damage to his hydrovane, and it basically meant he had to go and get outside assistance. So he went to a port, sailed 600 miles north, spent a few days there fixing it, and then he finally got back on the course. So he's now out of the event, out of the race, the GGR, which is solo, non-stop, unassisted, but he's in Chichester class, and then he takes off and catches the leader, which was Kirsten. and catching up. And he ended up finishing ahead of Kirsten, but with the time compensation that Kirsten had for rescuing Tapio, he didn't actually make line on us even, but he was really fast because he had to travel that extra sailing distance. You see, so he was absolutely the fastest guy on the course, and he's now navigator on Translated, and he would be working really well with the skipper. Both of those are the same mindset. You know, Simon is a very good performance sailor. He did some amazing things in the GGR, and he's past sailing, so that's that one. Then the next one is, you got Captain Coconut. Well, what do you say? Captain Coconut, the slowest guy in the fleet in the GGR. And now he's doing a great job in the GGR, in the OGR. And I got to say, all joking aside, I'm very happy to have Captain Coconut as skipper of Explorer. He's a great guy, a very good navigator, a bit of a character. And I couldn't think of anyone else that I would rather have there except me. But anyway, so he's a great job. And then what happened with Helsinki, Spirit of Helsinki, Juicy got caught right at the last minute with some crewing issues, and he was without a navigator, basically. He was juggling situations, and Ian happened to call into the race village to say g'day, and being at the right time, at the right place, and it just worked really well with Juicy. And so I think he dropped in with about 4 days' notice. And because of his GGR background, we could give him various dispensations on the crew qualifications and blah, blah, blah. So we were able to get him on board and meet all the requirements. So Ian is actually there, and it literally was a very last-minute decision. I think he made the offer, and he said, he spoke to me about it and asked me what I thought. I said, Ian, doors only open every so often. So I think the next day he went and gave notice at work and said, hey, guys, I got to go. And so he was on the boat 4 days later, and they started. So that's about it. Next one. How can you give us some news on? Can you give us news on Stefan? Yeah, Stefan's going to be fine. He made his own way back to France, to Paris, and then got home pretty quickly. And he's had his injury attended to. I believe, I haven't gone into it in detail, but the main one is I got it as far as I know. He's going to be fine, and he will fully recover. It was quite traumatic. The whole thing. It'll take a while to repair because there's basically a big hole in the back of his leg behind the knee. But yeah, he will recover fully, and he's got some good stories to tell, and he's going to be fine. And the pressure was off, or what I say, the drama was off within a couple of days of getting medical help. So that was good. Why are some of the boats difficult? The next one is, why with some boats is it very difficult to understand the sound cloud? Well, this is an interesting point. We require under the notice of race that the Iridium phones, which are where they make their calls, have an external antenna. They've got to have an external antenna fitted with the wire cable coming down below and so on, because normally the Iridium phone is like a mobile phone. You just pull the aerial out, and you stand outside. As long as you can see the horizon, you get the satellites and you make the call. So I think there's some issues there with some of the installations on the phones. They didn't work out. And the other thing is that Iridium itself is not absolutely foolproof. It has some issues, even though they've got a lot of they're not geostationary satellites. They're actually moving. Those ones they set out of the set orbit, and they're moving all the time. And the idea is that you send your signal, and they bounce across to satellite until they can see something on land. And they drop the signal down, and it's a cheaper way than having massive geostationary satellites like the Inmarsat system. So there's some spots, especially around the equator, that I know about because I've been using it a long time, and you read about where there is not as good as reception as it should be. And so there are probably two issues that are sometimes leading to bad reception and so on. So that's that one. The SoundCloud recording, we actually don't tell anyone, but we use Chinese phones for those calls, and they're very good. And unlike an iPhone, they allow you to automatically record the conversation. So it's a direct digital recording of what's on the phone. So when I say Chinese phones, I say that with respect. They're very good phones. They're not an iPhone, but they allow you to record directly. I don't know whether they're legal, but anyway. That's fine. That's what we do. So the recording this end is good, and the recording onto SoundCloud itself is good. So that's that one. James, hi Don, Southampton. Hi James. I have two questions. First, please can you explain how the WeatherFax system works and why have so many boats, including Maiden, been struggling to get weather reports? The WeatherFax system is really simple. You may remember 20 years ago when you had a fax machine in the office, and it was like this big thing the size of a loaf, or quite a big thing, and the phone would ring, and then all of a sudden screaming away, and then the fax machine would go on thermal paper or whatever, or printing paper, and print out a fax. The WeatherFax is the same thing. So you have a station, a government station somewhere, and it has a map that it wants to send by fax. So it puts the map into a decoder, and it scans that bit of paper with the map on it, and it sends a signal by HF radio. On that one signal can go out on like 6 different frequencies, the 4 megs, 6 megs, 8 megs, 12, 25 megs. So that sends it either short distance or long distance. And then on the boat, you have the WeatherFax receiver. It's not a transceiver. It's just a radio receiver. And that has the software, or not software, has all the electronics in there to decode that signal and basically print it out on a thermal paper. And so when the map is put out, you rip it off and you've got a copy of the map. So it's like a normal fax machine that's transmitted by radio waves rather than a hard line that you used to have in the office. So there's a couple of things there. One is, in fact, there's 2 main other issues then to receiving a good WeatherFax. And the first one is that you've got to have your WeatherFax installed correctly with really good coax cables, really good antennas with amplifiers, good connections, and you've got to make sure that your actual machine is tuned, because we learned something new, and I've been dealing with WeatherFax since 1990. We learned something new, that inside the WeatherFax there's a little switch. You got to take the cover off, and this little switch, you have to actually turn it on to the type of antenna you have, either the amplified VHF type whip or a long wire or whatever. That's the first time I've heard of that. And if you've got the wrong switch there, it's going to perform hopelessly. Anyway, the second part of the receiving of the WeatherFax is that the station has to be, first of all, transmitting the WeatherFax, and secondly, you've got to get, hope that the radio conditions allow you to receive it. And WeatherFax has only got coverage for about half the world at the moment. It used to be all over the world, but it's about half the world. So it's still very valuable. And you would have heard the entrants talking about, getting great WeatherFax, getting great maps from Berlin and great maps from North America or Canada or whatever it is, and they're really valuable. But there's certain parts of the world where no one's transmitting, so you won't get anything. But the parts that it's working, it's really good. And this was quite controversial, because I've got to tell you something. We had, in fact, no, I won't tell you that one. But there's some entrants that were upset that thinking well, how can we survive? How can we do the OGR, because we don't get WeatherFaxes? It's only half the world. Waste of time. We made a big mistake by making the WeatherFax mandatory, all right? Because I just assumed everyone would want one, and I want everyone to have a WeatherFax, because it was proven in the GGR that when you get good WeatherFaxes, it was very valuable for lots of reasons. And so I made it mandatory. In 2027, you'll find that it won't be mandatory. It'll be voluntary, and we'll leave it up to them to decide whether they want one, because it's not the whole world. It's just an advantage. It's an aid to getting good weather forecasts. And, because we made it mandatory, and because it's only half the world, people were saying, it's a waste of money, blah, 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 blah. And now the race is dangerous because you can't get weather forecasting, and blah, blah, blah. It was crazy. So we're going to knock that out, and we'll leave it up to them, because the safety weather forecasts is all about the high seas forecast using their HF radio. And again, you need a good installation. Installation needs to be perfect. You need someone who knows how to operate a radio, which is very sophisticated, and you need to know what you're doing to make the most of the skip, and all sorts of issues like that. And I know a lot of them haven't got that level of expertise, but the main line of weather forecasting is the High Seas WMO, or World Meteorological Organization, GMDSS weather forecasting, which covers the whole world. Okay, and then you got to know how to make your maps from that worded forecast. Long answer for a simple question. Sorry. Okay, second, we have loved following the race since I took my 3 children to the Ocean Village pontoon, and TJ very kindly gave us a tour of Godspeed. Right. We are rooting for those guys. Really hope they make it to Cape Town in time for the start. Second, we'll keep them there. What chance do you give them, and what happens if they or any other boats don't make the start? I think I've addressed that. We'll make sure they're still in the race. Don't worry. They'll be on their way to Auckland quicker than you know it, touch wood. So, Cheryl, why is it just Maiden that is posting so many updates and pics on their own social feeds and via OGR? None of the other boats. Is this allowed? Absolutely. In fact, I'm quite impressed with the level of social media that Maiden put out. You know, they have a great system. They've got a good team there. They've been doing it for years and years with their tour around the world and so on. So they know what's required and they make great posts. So certainly Maiden in the OGR is not producing or delivering any more material back to the world than any of the I shouldn't say that than any of the other entrants in the OGR could do if they wanted to. In other words, all entrants can do 4 tweets a day, 3 pictures a week, and a video clip. Okay, and then what happens is once you've got that material, it depends how the teams use that to create social media. And certainly, I go on about this. You know, the tweets are fantastic. You know, every boat could be doing 4 tweets a day, and I love reading them. And I know a lot of the followers love reading them as well. So it's just that Maiden has a really good social media department, and they keep producing material. They use their assets strategically, you know, using photos that they've taken before and have comments and commentators and everyone. So they just do a really good job of it. So it's very good to see. Very good to see. Okay, Elaine, why is the communication with some boats so difficult? Have they not all got the same material? Yes, they have. Everyone's has to have 2 Iridium satellite phones. They have to have a system to send photographs, and they have the same radios. Everything's the same. It's required, but some of them, I think there might be an issue with their external antennas on the Iridium. This is an interesting point that Tapio brought up. Usually, in both Gold Globe races, we have what's called a prologue race when we're sailing from, say, the first one, we sailed from Falmouth to Les Sables d'Olonne to start the first GGR. And we use that as an organisation, that little race from Falmouth to Les Sables d'Olonne, to test the systems and put the entrants under pressure to make sure they really have tested all their systems on the boat. There's the radio systems, their navigation systems, their satellite transmitting systems, tracking systems, radio direction finders, everything. We give them tests. We run things during the course of that. We did the same in 22. Okay, and Tapio's used to that because he did both of them. And we didn't do a prologue sailing from somewhere to Southampton for lots of reasons. One is most of the entrants didn't want it. They were still building their boats and so on. And they more or less said, we would much rather have the time to prepare rather than have to do a prologue, and because you've got to assemble in the port for 3 or 4 days and then you sail across and then blah, blah, blah. So we didn't do a prologue. And Tapio said, boy, did we miss the prologue, because they had problems with their sat phone, this, that, and the other. But we put the onus on testing and checking everything back to the entrants. And some of them may not have tested their gear as well as they could have or should have. So, but they've all got the same stuff. It's a shame we don't get more information, as this race is a great lesson for all. Yeah, I agree. I'm surprised that some don't do more tweets and stuff. But anyway, everyone's trying and doing their best. And talking about life on board. There's the following is building. You know, we're slowly, steadily, but surely it's building. And certainly I'm convinced that when we get to Cape Town after the finish of this leg, Ada and I will be down there. We'll be covering lives as they're approaching the finish line, and then when they're on the dock, and then we'll be doing interviews when they're there, and that'll make a lot of people aware. And then leg 2 and 3, well, they speak for themselves. It's quite an adventure when they are in the Southern Ocean. We will be experiencing some interesting adventures, I believe, as followers. So stand by for that, and I think you'll see the numbers increase even further. Okay, Elwyn would like to know if the different crews have any type of celebration of crossing the equator. We sure did in the Navy. Please share. Yeah, in Australia, the Australian Navy got into a bit of trouble for that, and they don't talk about it anymore. Maybe they refer to all the bastardry going on in the bloody troops, and it's the Navy and this, that, and the other. But it's a tradition, you know. You get done in. If you're an Antarctic virgin, you know that's what happens. You got to answer to King Neptune for all your sins. And so, yes, if I see the tweet from White Shadow today, just saying, "Oh, there's a lot of equatorial virgins on board their boat." I think he said nearly all of them. So there's going to be some shenanigans going on there, that's for sure. So, and a few have spoken about what they do. Some may not speak about what they do because it might not be proper, but who knows? But certainly, I can't tell you because I'm not there. And I think you'll see some of the videos will show what goes on, maybe, and some of the photos. Who knows? Stand by; they'll tell you. And yes, I spent a little time in the Navy and had some fun. But there you go. Okay, Sunlove Sailing. Hey, folks, do the entrants have to round specific waypoints? No. Yes, they do. For instance, do they have to round Trinidad? No, they don't. We've already done that. Okay, Joanne. I have a question about the different legs of the race. Why is there a relatively lengthy break between legs? Whereas in the GGR, boats stayed a very short time in each stopping place. Well, they didn't really stop. They just came and passed over film. They could have anchored anywhere they wanted to have a rest, and they certainly did in Hobart. In Hobart, they had to stop for at least 90 minutes, which was mimicking part of the history of the Golden Globe, because Bernard Montessier, a very famous French sailor in Joshua, when he got to Hobart, he wanted to get his messages across, and he hung around for a long time waiting for a fishing boat to pass his letters and get it back to the club in Tasmania, in Hobart. And when Robin went around to New Zealand, he rendezvoused with a guy to come and read him his letters from home, and he anchored, and he actually ran aground and had to walk his anchor out, hopping underwater and try and kedge off the sandbank. And he stopped there for some time. So that was mimicking that, even though they didn't stop for long. But this is following in the original Whitbread race, following a similar timeline, similar ports, and similar stopover periods. And in the original Whitbread, the smaller boats, there were some very small ones there, they also had problems getting to the port in time and having a meaningful break and being able to service everything and then get going. So what happened in 73 is sort of shaping up to be similar to the OGR. And so there are distinctly 4 legs, and the stopovers can vary. The big one is in Auckland because that's over Christmas, New Year. Families are flying in. There's a heap of people flying in and stuff, and they get to service everything halfway point before they head around Cape Horn. Are the crews, the other one is, are the crews the same on all legs, or can they take on new people? Perhaps lose a crew member who does not do the whole race. Thank you. Yeah, there's very few boats that are actually doing the whole race with the same crew. Tapio is on Galliana with Secure. And I think most of the others are rotating at least some, if not a few. I think translated, everyone's swapping a few around. On Explorer, we're swapping a few around. We've got our youth crew that changes on every leg, and we've got a couple of extras that are only doing leg 1. We've got one guy doing leg 2. And we've got another 2 coming on board for leg 3 that are swapped out, sort of thing. And on the last leg, we fill up. We've got 6 women on the last leg. It'd be quite fun. All characters, 6 women and 5 guys. So they're outnumbered. Could be a mutiny. So yes, it's possible. What we do though is you can only change a maximum of 70% of the crew. So at least 30% have got the experience and follow over from the previous leg. And we really don't want anyone to change the skipper. The skipper's supposed to be going all the way around. And if not, then they did not finish unless there's special circumstance, because we think the skipper is important. He's the figurehead, or she's the figurehead of the boat. That's how we try and manage it. It's all, if you want to ever read the notice of race, which is quite substantial. I'm trying to throw a copy in front of you here. This is my doctored up copy of the notice of race. You can download it from the website. If you go to the OGR website, you'll see when you go onto race, there's all the drop down boxes, and one says notice of race. You can download it and have a read. It'll give you all the fine detail on some very interesting rules. Louise, I never did work out your question. It's just got a great question about OGR, past history of the Whitbread and present race. Can't wait to see the answers. I don't know what that is unless you're referring to all the questions. Sorry. Stella, is there a list somewhere of the original names of the yachts as used in the previous Whitbreads? Certainly the first 3 Whitbreads We cover off on both the program, our special blue cover program, which you can download from the website. This one here, or not download, it's done as a flick book. That's the program. It's all in there, a lot of historic stories and bits. And you can see what the name of the boats were and the skippers and the designers and lengths and where they came in the race. That's on the first three. Apart from that, if you just Google it or get onto Wikipedia, there's a lot of information there about the last Whitbreads. And the best part, the fun part, get onto YouTube and just Google just go to the index and name, Whitbread 1973, Whitbread 1977, all of the original films that were produced of the Whitbread are there. They're fantastic viewing. So weekend, go watch one. Okay, here's a good one. Is there a turning? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. It looks like it's Polish or Czechoslovak. Polish, I think that is. I'm not sure. Could be, I don't know. Is there a turning mark that's been required to go around, or is the track just drawn that way? The track's just drawn that way. There's no turning mark there with Trinidad or anything like that. So Helen, this could be the last question. I've seen references to the skeleton crew for Godspeed. Where did the rest of the crew go? Or have they always had a small crew? Hope this isn't a stupid question. No such thing as a stupid question. Yes, they've got a smaller crew than they intended. One of the crew had a medical problem in Southampton and wasn't able to continue. So they lost one of the crew right at the last minute. Everyone tried to find them another spot, military personnel, a vet, to fill the gap, but weren't able to. So they've gone with what they've got, and they're quite happy about that. And the guy with the medical issue is back on track. So all is good. Okay, that's it. So now I'm just going to quickly scan through the comments here. Geez, these always take a long time, these things. But anyway, it's only for the hardy. Good morning from Plymouth. Hi, Paul. Friends, good morning. Greece, being fascinated again. That's cool. Is it possible to make a text version of the answers? Oh, are you kidding me? What you can do, if you go to YouTube, you'll see this come up on YouTube, and you can set that with subtitles at the bottom. So you can go subtitles, and then that'll come up in English in my voice. And it's usually, because it's live subtitles on my Australian, English, or American language, and it's sort of not too bad. And then once you've got the subtitles set, you can actually then choose any language you want from their list of selections, hit that, and you'll get if you're French, for instance, you can get a French subtitle set up as I'm speaking. And that process is getting better and better. So that's the best I can do. And I have no idea how to pronounce your name again. But anyway, okay. Hendrik, hi, Don. Would imagine that the boats would all plan to provide additional food supplies, etc., in the event that their trip is extended due to no wind. Yeah, true. I mean, I don't know how much extra they have, but they will know what their ETA is like. And if they think they're running out of food, they will actually start slowing consumption down. It's pretty obvious they'll level it out. So we're not expecting anyone to talk about running out of food. So okay, Don, you should read us. Don, you should read us a book. I could listen to you talk for hours about sailing, despite never having been a sailor. Oh, that's cool. Okay. In fact, book reading is. I've been waiting for someone on one of the boats. I often ask them the question, "What do you do for fun? What do you do? Whatever." And that's one of the things we used to do at different times. Book reading's great when you have 3 or 4 people sitting around, and you grab one of the books out of the library, and then you just start reading it. So you have these reading sessions, especially if you're in a bunk. And I mean, I've been in Antarctica when we're being pinned down with huge blizzards and stuff. You can't do anything, so you just grab a book and you have a book reading. Good fun. But anyway, thank you for that. I speak a bit fast sometimes. Hey, Don, happy to hear your insights again. Following from the GGR, good on you. And just the sailing techniques is fantastic for growth. Yeah, it's amazing what you can pick up. And as I say, the weather's a bit boring now, except for the doldrums. But it'll be fun to watch as they get further south. Things change a lot. Godspeed call themselves the Skeleton Crew. Yeah, that's right. Oh, maybe that's part of that question. Skeleton Crew is Godspeed. Yeah, that's their theme. Okay, that's it. I think I've had enough, and so have you too. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow for the tracker update again. See you later.